Hi, I'm Morgan, and today I will be reading Chapter 14 of Charities Chosen by Ruby M. Ayres. Chapter 14. Harvey found Heather kneeling on the floor in the middle of his sitting room, trying to close an overfilled portmanteau. He looked up with a hot, irate face when Harvey entered. "Who let you in?" he demanded in unfriendly fashion. "The door was open, so I walked in." Harvey glanced quickly round the room. "Where are you going?" he asked suspiciously. Heather finished shutting the portmanteau before he answered. Then he rose to his feet. "I'm going to the devil or the Antipodes. I'm not particular which." There was a little silence. "Alone?" Harvey asked sharply. Heather turned round and stared at his friend. Then he said bluntly, If you've come here to say anything unpleasant, say it and get out. I'm in a hurry." "Very well." Harvey dragged up a chair, but made no attempt to sit down, and although his nerves were jumping, he made a desperate effort to keep calm. "The mater's kicked Charity out of the house," he said uncompromisingly. Heather's steady eyes wavered for a moment. Then he answered, "With all respect to your mater, it's exactly the sort of thing I should expect her to do." Harvey ignored the sneer. "She's kicked you out because Pelham told her that Charity has been here visiting you," he said hoarsely. He waited in an agony of suspense, and then as Heather said nothing, he broke out, "Well, is it true?" "She has been here, yes." The two men glared at one another for a moment. Then Harvey burst out again. "Well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to marry her?" "Marry her?" Heather laughed. "Good Lord, no, I'm not going to marry anyone. I've done with women." He came a step nearer. "Look here, what are you driving at?" he demanded irritably. "Let's have all the cards on the table." "You know what I'm driving at. You're not such a fool that you haven't known for weeks that Charity—" he choked a little over her name— "that she's in love with you." Heather flushed. "She told me so half a dozen times," he said cynically, "but I don't take any notice of what a girl like that says. She's only a child, a warm-hearted enough child, but she's not a child. She's a woman, and she's in love with you, I tell you." Heather shrugged his shoulders. "And you apparently are not quite indifferent to her, is that it? My good boy, don't try to run your head into brick walls that don't exist. I'm not your deadly rival, if that's what you're afraid of, and, as you see, I'm clearing out of England." "And what's to become of Charity?" "I haven't the slightest idea. She's been to my rooms 3 times altogether, once with you, once to bring me a letter from your sister, and again the night your governor died." "You won't try to tell me that she came here for Myrtle's sake, then?" Harvey sneered. No, she came to take your sister away," Heather answered. His voice was quite calm and unemotional. Strange how soon Myrtle had killed his passion for her. It made him feel ashamed to realize how indifferent he was to her now. He saw the look of relief in his friend's eyes, and he went on. "I'm not damaging Myrtle by telling you this, because I know for your own sake, as well as for hers, you won't repeat it. She had some trouble with Pelham, and on a foolish impulse she left him and came to me." He laughed reminiscently. "I had already told her she must go back to her husband before Charity came, and then on top of that, Pelham arrived. Oh, yes, we had a regular family gathering, I assure you. Pelham seemed to suspect that his wife was here, but thanks to Charity, she was got out of the place without him seeing her." He pointed to his bedroom door. "The melodramatic scene was staged in there," he said cynically, "only, unfortunately for Charity, for some reason best known to herself, remained behind, and Pelham saw her. He made the usual foul observations which a man of his type would make in the circumstances, and I knocked him down. That's all. If he's told your mater or anyone else anything different, he's a liar, and the next time we meet, I shall have the pleasure of knocking him down again." There was no doubting the sincerity of his words, or the ring of truth. "And you don't care for Charity?" Harvey asked. "No." The denial was emphatic enough, and yet, directly it had been spoken, Heather was conscious of a twinge of remorse. Did he not care for her? He saw it hurriedly in the recesses of his mind, but pushed the thought away from him. He had done with women. For months he had eaten his heart out for Myrtle, and much good had been gained. He broke into hurried speech. "This will all blow over. Your mater will change her mind and let the kid stay." Harvey laughed mirthlessly. "You think so? You don't know the mater. Charity will go. I know her well enough to know that she wouldn't stay after what has happened, even if we all asked her on our bended knees. She's as proud photographer. Nonsense. Heather paced the room and turned. Look here, I'll come round with you if you like and see her. She'll listen to me, perhaps, if she won't to you. Who will? Harvey asked bluntly. The maid or Charity? I was talking about Charity at the moment. Harvey frowned. I thought you were catching the night train to the devil, he said bitterly. No, as a matter of fact, it's the morning boat, Heather answered. I've put this flat in the agent's hands. It'll soon let, being cheap and not too attractive. Come on, I've got an hour to spare. He took up his hat and coat, and the two men left the flat together. I'm not sure that Charity will see you, Harvey said as they walked down the street. He was hoping that she would not. In spite of Heather's denial, he was acutely jealous of him. How could any man remain quite indifferent when Charity loved him? She'll see me all right, Heather answered confidently. Mrs. Atfield had gone to bed when they reached the house, but Ellen informed them that Charity was in the schoolroom packing. Packing! Harvey said sharply. Yes, sir. Ellen had been crying. And it's a shame. That's what it is, she broke out indignantly. After everything she's done for everybody here, and being put upon all the time. If she leaves the house, I shall give in my notice. All right, we'll go up, Harvey said, and he led the way, with Heather at his heels. Charity was occupied in very much the same way as Heather had been when Harvey called at the flat. She was trying to stuff her few worldly possessions into the shabby trunk which she had brought with her to England. Her dark hair stood up wildly over her head, and her face was very white. When Harvey opened the door, and she saw who was with him, she gave a loud gasp, and let the black frock which she was folding fall to her feet. Heather looked at her and laughed. There was a queer little light in his eyes. Are you packing for the Antipodes, too? He asked. Running away seems to be in the air tonight. I'm going myself tomorrow morning. Oh, Heather looked at Harvey. I want to talk to Charity alone for a moment, he said, and without a word, Harvey walked out of the room. But even after Harvey had gone, it seemed difficult for Heather to begin, with Charity's searching eyes upon him, and the quivering of her lips to tug at a man's heartstrings, no matter how hard he tried to steel himself against her. But after a moment he broke out. Look here, it's all nonsense, this going away. I'll see Mrs. Atfield tomorrow and put things right. Thank you. I don't want you to. Why not? I should hate to stay here now. I'd much rather go. Even if I ask you not to. She looked up with a flashing glance, and then quickly down again. Even if you ask me not to, she said obstinately. There's Harvey. He wants you to stay. I know, but he makes no difference. Are you always so obstinate? She made no answer. What are you going to do, in heaven's name? Heather demanded crossly. Where are you going? I don't know, but I can earn my own living. Have you ever tried? No, but I mean to. There was an unbroken silence. Then Heather asked bluntly, You hate me very much for all this? Again that quick, flashing glance, but no reply. Heather laughed, not very mirthfully. At any rate, you don't like me any longer, do you? Not even the tiniest little bit, eh? No answer, and Heather went to her and with his hand beneath her chin, gently raised her face. Don't quarrel with me, Charity, he said, half laughing, half in earnest. We may never meet again after tomorrow. I'm going away, you know. He felt her slim little body grow suddenly rigid, and then before he could prevent her, she had slipped to the floor at his feet, her face hidden in her arms, and she was sobbing wildly. Oh, take me with you. I won't be a nuisance. I'll work for you and look after you and love you. Charity! In spite of her efforts to resist him, he stooped and lifted her up. Charity, look at me. She flung back her head, the tears running down her face, her whole body shaken with sobs, and Heather was suddenly conscious of a little warm feeling at his heart, not the unreasoning passion which he had felt for Myrtle, but something deeper and more tender, something which caught him by the throat, making his voice a little hoarse, even though he tried to laugh as he said, and replied to the question in her startled eyes, as he had said once before. I suppose you thought I was going to kiss you? And then, with sudden, deep sincerity, I want to kiss you. May I, Charity? She gave him her lips unquestioningly, kissing him with all her heart and soul, only drawing back to ask breathlessly, And you'll take me with you? Heather laughed with pretended chagrin, though he looked quite contented. It looks as if I must, he said. Charity gave a long sigh. I shall never let you get tired of me, she said fervently. Heather flung back his head and laughed. Which are you, a baby or a woman? He asked. Charity laughed too. I don't know. I don't mind which I am, so long as you love me. It was impossible for him not to tease her. "I'm not aware that I have said I love you." For a moment, her face clouded, then she smiled. "Oh, but I know you do," she said confidently. He drew her again into his arms. "Upon my word, I believe you're right," he admitted ruefully, and then, after a moment, "You know, life won't be very easy with me. Sometimes I haven't got a shilling in the world." "What fun," Charity said. "And sometimes I'm like a bear with a sore head," Heather went on. "I don't mind," she smiled happily. "There's only one thing I shall ever mind," she admitted after a little pause. "What is it? I may as well know the worst to start with." "If you ever like anyone else better than me," she whispered. Heather took his arms away. "You're not the first woman I've been in love with, or that I've imagined I was in love with," he said gruffly. "There were others, beside your cousin." Charity considered. "I don't believe I was ever really jealous of her," she said at last, reflectively. "You see, in my heart, I knew all the time it wasn't the real thing. I knew you wouldn't really be happy together." He regarded her moodily. "Do you think I shall be happy with you?" She nodded gravely. "Do you think you will be happy with me?" Do you think you will be happy with me?" he demanded. "I know I shall," Charity answered fervently. But there was still one thing she must ask him. "You?" She flushed prettily as she spoke his name, and Heather's eyes twinkled. "When you say that, I feel as if we've been married for years," he teased her. He caught her hand. "Come here, don't stand so far away." But she shook her head. "I want to ask you something first." "Well, what is it?" "Harvey said that there was someone down in the country. Someone you went to see quite often. A woman? Is she still down in the country, and shall you still want to go and see her?" Heather's face changed, and for a moment his eyes looked rather sad. "She's dead," he said shortly. "She died 3 weeks ago." "Oh!" Charity's heart contracted. Her imaginative little mind seemed somehow to find a more terrible rival in a love who was dead than in one who still lived. But Heather went on. "I suppose you've heard the wrong story. I never loved her, Charity. She was just a poor, unhappy little soul whom a man had treated badly and left." "You mean Mr. Pelham?" Charity asked. Her mind seemed to leap at once to the truth. Heather frowned. "You're very quick at putting 2 and 2 together," he said. "Yes, it was Pelham. She thought he was going to marry her, and when she found he was not, she tried to take her life." "Oh, and you saved her?" "Nothing quite so heroic, I'm afraid, but I did my best to help her. I found her a home in the country, and I used to go and see her sometimes. But she was a poor, weak little thing, and she died. I think it was just 3 weeks ago." "Oh." Heather smiled into her serious eyes. "So there's no need to be jealous," he submitted dryly. Someone knocked at the door. "It's Harvey," Charity said swiftly. "Poor Harvey." She was so happy that she could find it in her heart to pity everyone who was not so happy as she. She made a movement to open the door, but Heather stopped her. You're not going to change your mind tomorrow and send me about my business, I suppose?" he demanded suspiciously. The rose color flushed her little face. "Oh, would you mind if I did?" she asked tremulously. Heather bent his head and pressed his lips to hers in a long kiss. "I should hate it like the very devil," he whispered. He let her go then, and all smiles and blushes she ran across the room and opened the door. "Oh, come in, Harvey, please come in." But Harvey stayed on the threshold, looking from one to the other with eyes that were infinitely pathetic in his set face. "Well?" he said sharply. He looked hard at his friend. "Have you persuaded her to stay?" Heather shook his head. "No, she won't stay. She's going. But I'm going with her," he said, and there was an expression in his eyes that made Charity's heart tumble over and over with happiness. She looked at Harvey, and her face was radiant. "Yes, he's coming with me," she said, "and I'm going with him for always." The end. Thank you for listening to Charity's Chosen with me, and I hope that you enjoyed the book, and have a great day. Bye!